Hello, everybody. I'm so excited and honored to be here with you today. And we're going to introduce Dr. Sailesh Rao of Climate Healers. And he is talking about COP27 happening right now in Egypt. And we call it COP Out. Greta Thunberg is not going, calling it a greenwashing event. And neither is Dr. Rao, but Dr. Rao held an alternative weekend summit that talked about the solution to the climate crisis being ignored by all the world leaders converging on Egypt for COP27, the climate summit. Dr. Rao, take it away. What is the solution being ignored?
Well, the solution in any problem, the way I solve it is first I create a model for it, and then I understand how to solve that model in that model, and then apply it to the real world, take the results from there and refine the model and keep going. This is how you build systems that work. We have known this for hundreds of years. Systems engineering has been around, and yet they are not doing that. They are just blindly saying either this or nothing, right? Either fossil fuels or don't do anything. So they are still serving meat, dairy, fish, and eggs in the cafeteria, completely ignoring that side of the problem. And to me, it's just mind-bogglingly irresponsible. Okay, because according to my model, so I've got the climate bathtub model that I presented at COP26 in Glasgow, and saying, this is what I would do as an engineer. If it gave me this problem, I'd look at it and try to model it, and then solve it in the model, and then say, what do I need to do to apply it in the real world? And that is saying, go vegan as quickly as possible. Okay, it's saying shut down the killing machine as quickly as possible. Because, and again, it's also common sense, right? So if you see the planet is dying around you, why are we having a killing machine that's killing 80 billion land animals and 1 to 3 trillion sea animals every year unnecessarily? I mean, does it require anything more than common sense to say shut down the killing machine because the planet is dying around you? And yet they don't even see that. It's just, to me, it's just utterly irresponsible behavior on the part of our so-called world leaders. And, and I can't continue with that. I cannot continue playing along with them. We have to do this ourselves, and we have to start implementing a solution, and then they'll come along eventually when they see that no one's listening to them anymore, because I think they deserve to be ignored right now. Don't take them seriously, please.
So I want to say, first of all, this is our first opportunity to simulcast on our streaming network, Unchained TV, as well as our homepage, UnchainedTV.com. And that little circle you see is Voice America Radio. It's also being simulcast on Voice America Radio, and we learn as we go. So we'll have a nice little Voice America Radio banner for the next time we do this. But let me say this. Here's the essence of it. COP26, which happened not so long ago in Glasgow, Scotland, served meat and dairy. And the Washington Post, which is not a vegan organization by any means, wrote an article. And this is what they said. Hungry in Glasgow, the COP26 menu comes carbon counted. Now, against a lot of advice from vegan organizations and environmental organizations, some of them anyway, the organizers were urged not to serve meat because of the high carbon footprint. Nonetheless, they did so. Here's what the Washington Post wrote. The campaign group Animal Rebellion said that serving meat and dairy products at a climate summit was tantamount to serving cigarettes at a lung cancer conference. Some of the delegates poring over menus right before supper time on a recent day were alarmed by the choices. I was shocked when I came here and saw all these, said Peter Odrich, 20, a delegate from Germany, who was referring to the meat options. He was eyeballing a menu at the fish and chips stand and opted for the tempura broccoli, the only vegetarian option on that menu. This is the Washington Post, again, want a Scottish beef burger? It's unclear what that will set you back calorie-wise, and who's to say if you'll get darting glances from vegans dining nearby. But the burger has been calculated to have a 3.9 kilogram CO2e rating. That's much higher than the Scottish beetroot and broccoli salad, which is 0.2. So essentially, the Washington Post, which is not a vegan organization, is calling out the climate conference in Glasgow, saying, why the hell did you serve meat when meat has such a higher carbon price tag? You put the price tags right there on each and every item. And then nonetheless, they come back in Egypt. Now it's starting today. It's underway today. World leaders converging, and they're serving meat and dairy again. Now,
Right.
here's what the headline says. The headline says, World on highway to climate hell. UN Chief Guterres tells COP27 humanity must cooperate or perish in the face of climate change effects. So they're saying it's a crisis. The world's going to hell. That's not my word. That's the word of the head of the United Nations. And yet they are continuing to serve meat and dairy products, Dr. Rao.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically causing it to happen, according to my models. As I in any project, you have to really figure out what you're implementing, and then see that it matches reality, right? This is standard engineering practice, and they're not following even engineering 101 practices. It's just, I'm just appalled at either the incompetence or their complete lack of care for the people and all life on the planet. So it is just this is why I say I'm not going. I'm boycotting this anymore from now on until they have a completely vegan menu and they start talking about animal agriculture seriously, not just one day among the 12 days or 14 days. One day and that too they include it with adaptation. Adaptation in agriculture is on November 13th apparently, and I said just one day, and then give all the NGOs a small pavilion to go sit in, talk among yourselves. This is not serious behavior of someone who is trying to actually solve the problem. So what's the point of saying we are all going to hell in a handbasket if you're not going to address the solutions? So
why is it? Because let's face it, the fossil fuel industry is very, very powerful as well, but they seem to have no problem addressing the fossil fuel industry. And yet they have a huge problem addressing the animal agriculture industry, which of course is very much tied into the pharmaceutical industry, because we wouldn't need a lot of those pills, the statins, the cholesterol lowering drugs, the erectile dysfunction drugs, all those drugs that they're making billions off of. A lot of that would just collapse if people switch to a healthy plant-based diet.
right.
So why are they so afraid of hitting animal agriculture when they're going after fossil fuels, which is obviously the gas industry, the oil industry, like crazy?
Yeah, they're going after fossil fuels because when you frame it as just a fossil fuel issue, there is nothing that people can do, ordinary people can do, because they're stuck, right? So you have to get to your work. So you have to either take a bus or drive a car, and you're not going to change that. You can't just keep walking everywhere, right? So people are stuck. Look at even the COP27 summit, right? People are coming from all over the world to Egypt, flying on planes, and they claim to be talking about fossil fuels. All the leaders are coming in private jets, okay? And what they did in Glasgow was they flew in on private jets, and then they had a whole retinue of sports utility vehicles to carry them from the airport to wherever they're going, but from their hotel to wherever they're going. And these are gas guzzlers. Yeah. So even fossil fuels, they may be talking about it, but they're not being serious about it. And they'll tell you, oh, we offset it. Okay. We threw some money at somebody and said, go plant some trees for me. That's not seriousness. Okay. And so this is the reason it's being framed as a fossil fuel issue is because then it puts people, uh, you know, out of commission. They cannot really do anything about it. But once you address it honestly, and you see that animal agriculture has such a leading um, impact on the climate, then people can do something about it right away. Okay? And when people do something about it right away, the whole thing collapses. That's their problem. Okay? I mean, they are trying to grow the economy. They tell you that too. They're trying to grow the economy and get out of fossil fuels. You can't do both. You cannot grow the economy and solve climate change. Climate change is basically saying you're done with this phase where it's all about growth, growth, growth. You've already grown the economy beyond what the planet can sustain.
We've got a caller, Rebecca in Texas. Your question or thought for Dr. Rao.
Thank you. I'm wondering, Dr. Rao, if you could say, well, what is it about animal agriculture that is causing climate change? I mean, what's the major part of raising animals that causes the climate change?
Well, there are several things about animal agriculture that causes climate change. Number one, the animals themselves breathe out methane, right? So a lot of ruminants, they eat food and they have 4 stomachs. So they eat food, they digest it in one stomach, and then they regurgitate it and chew it again and put it back into another stomach. And when they regurgitate the food, they emit a lot of methane. Methane is a greenhouse gas that's on an instantaneous basis, it's 150 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. So, and it is, I mean, it's incredibly, the estimate is that methane alone has caused more than half of the heating that we have caused today. Okay. So that's one major reason why animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. But the number one reason, the major reason, is because of all the land that we use for raising animals. So we have chopped down half the trees on the planet, folks, over the last 10,000 years. So there used to be 6 trillion trees, and now there are only 3 trillion trees left. And we cleared all those trees mainly to raise animals for food. And so when you cut down all the trees were storing carbon dioxide, and you just sent that all up into the atmosphere. Okay? Right now on land, there is 3 times as much carbon dioxide as the atmosphere. And we are complaining that the atmosphere has 30% more carbon dioxide than it used to have 200 years ago. And that's what's causing climate change. That's the main story that we're being told. Well, if you just put 10% more carbon dioxide on land, you can reverse that, right? So that's just third grade arithmetic. And so if you cut half the trees on the planet and still it's storing 3 times as much carbon dioxide as the atmosphere, can you not reverse climate change by bringing back the trees that you cut? Of course you can. Yeah, any child can figure this out. Of course you can.
All right, we've got another caller, Donnie in New York City. Your question or thought for Dr. Sailesh Rao, founder of Climate Healers, who's boycotting COP27 in Egypt as a cop out.
Hi, Dr. Rao. So I know that COP27 is just starting, but at COP26, did any of the organizers or leaders actually come out and say, stop eating meat or or reduce your meat consumption? And the second part of my question is, do we think that they avoid the subject because they themselves are still eating meat?
Yeah.
Thank you, Donnie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big problem, Donnie. It is, I mean, no leader of significance ever came out and said that. Okay. Of course, and I could say that I don't consider them leaders if they're not going to tell us the truth, right? But they are the titular leaders of the planet, and they didn't come out and say that. In fact, they had a banquet dinner, and the banquet dinner was, full of meat and dairy too. So it is. This is why they don't talk about it, because they are doing it. They are actually doing it, and maybe they really don't care. That's what James Cromwell said, right? He said, they're not trying to kill us. They just don't care that we die.
But why then have a climate conference? Why go out of your way to say you're trying to solve the problem? let me ask you a question. And I don't want to get into the exact numbers because that's a I don't want to say rabbit hole. Is that species? That's a vortex. That's quicksand.
Right.
But obviously, the United Nations itself said in 2006, Livestock's Long Shadow, a report that animal agriculture is responsible for more greenhouse gases than all transportation combined. That was their report called Livestock's Long Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Are they pretending that they don't know, or are they confused? Because if they do know and they're suppressing the information, and yet they're saying flat out that we are on the road to climate hell, that's not my words, that's their words from COP27 right now, then that's evil. I mean, that's a crime against humanity, against every species on the planet, if they have the solution and they're not revealing it.
Well, it's the same thing, no, that we do with the protein myth. It's still there in textbooks all over the world, the protein myth and the calcium myth. And they know it's not true. Do they not know that protein is available in every plant food? Do they not know that calcium is available in a lot of plant foods? Of course they know that. Yet they don't tell that to children, right? And they're still going along with the protein myth and the calcium myth. Why? Because they want, do they really want everyone to have diabetes and heart disease? Isn't that evil? That you're making them eat bad food so that they get sick? So you look at this and you say, well, this has been going on for a long time, and yet we didn't notice it. At that time, it was just individuals who are getting sick. Okay. Now the entire planet is getting sick, and the planet is saying no more. And if we continue with the same mindset of, we have to keep doing what we are doing and keep growing what we are doing, because every corporation wants to grow. So economic growth is like front and center for everybody. Okay? And they keep saying, we have to grow the economy and solve climate change. I'm sorry, you can't do both. You have to rethink everything. You have to think about, do we not take enough from the planet? Do we need more from the planet? What is left for the animals?
Well, I like the phrase human supremacy. And human supremacy is that the only thing that matters is what humans want. And we see this in every day. I just read that in a park here in Los Angeles, they poisoned the rabbits and the squirrels. Oh, they became inconvenient for somebody, and boom, they're going to just wipe them out. The problem is it's going to come back to bite us. When we destroy all the wild animals, 2 out of 3 bites of food come from bee pollination. When we destroy all that, we are going to have a serious crisis. We're already in the midst of a serious crisis. I interviewed a water expert who was not a vegan activist. I don't even know if he's vegan. He said, guess what? The choice is going to come down. Do you want a glass of water or do you want a burger? Because animal agriculture uses so much water, and it's never discussed in the media. What do they talk about? The almond trees. Well, we have something like 2 million cows here in California that are drinking a huge percentage of water and polluting a lot of the water. There's a controversy right now about Point Reyes National Seashore, where our own agencies of government are siding with the dairy industry and literally starving the tule elk of water in order to fence those animals off so that the dairy cows can take all that area for the dairy industry that doesn't even bring in the same amount of money as the tourists who go there to swim and to see the tule elk, 2 things that are being decimated by the dairy industry. And our agencies of government in liberal, hypothetically progressive California are siding with the dairy industry against their own interests. So that's just one example. I just want to go to this example. Recently, there was a trial involving 2 activists from Direct Action Everywhere who went into a factory farm and took out 2 piglets that they argued successfully in court were sick. The video inside is so awful that we can't really show it to you, but here is the trial. There are the 2 defendants on the right and one of their attorneys on the left, and Wayne Shung, the gentleman to the right, defended himself. So there was a change of venue because of what, essentially because of what law enforcement in the original town, which was a company town, was saying to people who came there to Utah to leaflet and talk. And I want to play this because we talk about the United Nations or ignoring it. We talk about the U.S. government ignoring it, but it goes all the way down to the local level where a law enforcement officer was talking to a leafleter who came there to leaflet, and here's what he said.
You have to have a permit.
Permit for a sidewalk?
Let me get my camera on too.
Sure.
Okay. You're not.
This is not a good look.
You're not. You're not to be spreading.
This is not a good look.
You're not supposed to be down here.
This is public property.
You're not to be down here doing this. Do you realize that your company caused a problem in our community?
Do you have anything relevant to say to me?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I've asked you to stop.
Okay, I'm on public property.
You need to stop.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You need to stop. You realize you're not wanted in this community and you've been asked to leave?
I don't care.
I know you don't care. That's the problem with your group. You just don't care about people or anybody. Do you understand? You've been asked to leave.
All of this for handing out some flyers. This is how much promotion.
All of this because your group has been a direct influence on shutting down Smithfield Foods. You don't realize that's the major employer in our county.
You don't think I know that?
There's a lot of people that have lost their jobs, and you come into this community and pour salt into the wounds of the people that have lost their jobs.
It's not the intent.
You need to well, I don't care what the intent is. What you're doing is causing a disturbance in the community.
I'm not trying to cause a disturbance. I'm just trying to have conversations with people.
You are.
And if people don't want to talk with me, I say thanks for your time and on with your day.
I'm going to stand right here and I'm going to tell people not to talk to you.
Then fine, do that. This is great content for us. Absolutely ridiculous. This is very anti-free speech.
I just bring that up because it goes all the way down to the local level. You know, it's not just the federal government. It's not just the United Nations. It's not just the state government. Right down to the local level, all the agencies that are in power are trying to stop people from talking about what is destroying the planet, Dr. Rao.
Yeah, it's systemic, right? So if you think about it, they're saying, care about people, don't care about the animals, right? So that's their message. Don't care about the animals. But the thing is, when you say, I don't care about the animals, you should expect someone above you not to care about you. And that's exactly what's going on, right? So we have a system where people are saying, I don't care about animals, I'm going to just kill them. And then they're shocked that climate change is going to kill us, and our leaders are not doing anything about it. Well, we have to do something about caring. We have to care for the animals.
I want to go to this caller, Tammy in Alberta, Canada. Your question or thought for Dr. Sailesh Rao?
Thank you, Jane. Dr. Rao, thank you very much for your work. Well, I live in Canada, where Alberta, Canada, it's kind of like the Texas of Canada, where there's lots of ranching going on, lots of cattle, lots of our land being used for that. And what they're doing is they're killing off everything that's wild, including all the wolves. And then what happens is the ecosystem gets completely out of balance. So now they're saying, we have too many deer wandering around, we have this, we have that. And I noticed that so many people are raised, young children even, to be afraid. Like when they see a moose, they're afraid or they're absolutely terrified. And the news is making it out that these coyotes are so dangerous and they're killing off all our pets. And I'm really appalled, like I remember reading something by a naturalist many, many years ago. And it said, if a child's to keep and I'm a vegan grandmother, and if a child's to keep their wonder of nature alive, they have to have one adult that will help them do that. And I'm just not seeing the adults step out for that. And instead, we're making nature something to conquer. And, our wild animals are almost gone. And people are getting paid to kill off all the wolves here. We're almost pretty well all our wolves are gone. Most of our bears are gone on the prairies. And they feel good about it. They feel very compassionate because we're making sure that we kill the whole pack when we do it, so that there's not babies left behind, little. So so I'm totally on board that we have to stop animal agriculture. I mean, once our wild animals are gone, we're gone. And I'm grateful for the work both of you are doing. I'm deeply grateful. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my God. Sobering.
Yeah. Thank you, Tammy.
I just, there are no words. And what she said is absolutely right. Anytime there's a coyote in this area, people are like, oh my God, watch out, there's a coyote. Meanwhile, they're trying to wipe out the last coastal wetlands here, where the coyotes and the foxes and the owls and the egrets and the cormorants and the pelicans live. And we're actually part of this battle to stop the fake restoration. This is the ultimate in greenwashing. Greta Thunberg said COP27 is a greenwashing event. Well, now they're saying we're going to restore the wetlands here in LA, the Bayona Wetlands Ecological Reserve, by bulldozing it for 9 years. It's beyond comprehension, Orwellian, and it's happening everywhere. It's truly scary. And what can we do to turn it around? There have been many points in human history, maybe, in the throes of World War II, where we said, oh my God, what's going to happen to the world? And somehow the forces of good prevailed. Can we prevail? We're going to take a very short break here on Voice America Radio. We're staying live on Facebook. Back in a second. Stay with us. We're going to remain live. Okay. So there we go. I want to mute them. Yes. Dr. Rao, we've got a lot of comments. We need to, now we've gotten severely depressed, but we got to turn it around. And right. I personally believe that what's going to turn it around is food tech, alt proteins. Okay. I do interviews constantly here on Voice America Radio, interviews that should be on the front page of the New York Times, but are not. And so these incredible companies around the world are developing ways to manufacture alternative proteins in massive vats. As Claire Smith of the Vegan ETF said, and I think she nailed it, if we make cruelty-free products, animal-free products, even cheaper than the heavily subsidized meat and dairy, and more profitable than the heavily subsidized meat and dairy, then the shift will happen. I know you're saying we need to get away from a culture of profit. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening within 3 years. And that's how soon we have to go to a vegan culture for our planet to survive. So I know that, for example, there's a company that we interviewed called Breville, extraordinary, out of Belgium, making bioidentical meat, no animal products, not even a biopsy. They copy the DNA structure. They can create whatever meat product. It looks like meat. It tastes like meat. It smells like meat. It has the texture of meat, and there's no meat involved. They use, I believe, a yeast protein. I'm not a scientist, so if I made a mistake on that, but that's the interview that we did with this company called Paleo. It was very inspiring. Then there's another company called, I forget the name of the company, but it does microalgae in giant vats. One of the problems with that, it's one of the oldest substances known to man. If you leave a bucket out, you'll see microalgae after a couple of days on the top. They couldn't eliminate the bitter taste, and now they've figured out a way to do that. They can manufacture microalgae, which they described as a perfect protein in these ginormous vats. It can feed the world and world hunger, and it's nutritious, and it can really adopt any taste, just like tofu that's applied to it. I want to talk to you about whether those are the solutions, because personally, I see that as the solution.
Yeah. Well, that is still in the old model of growth, right? So you want Everyone who does that kind of, say, Beyond Meat, or anyone who does, who's creating these alternative proteins, they are using it to grow their company, and they want to grow their company at the expense of other companies. Fine, there's competition going on, and there's impetus for growth. But overall, they're saying, the overall economy also has to grow. That's what our leaders are doing, political leaders are doing. And the planet is saying no more. Okay, that's the signal from climate change. That's the climate change signal. And that's the biodiversity loss signal. So all the environmental signals are saying you have taken enough from the planet for one species. You need to leave some for the others. Well, when you need to leave some for the others, you need to shrink your footprint. And that does not come with capitalist growth at all costs.
Okay,
So,
I'm going to interrupt you. We're coming back.
Welcome back to Unchained TV on Voice America Radio. I'm Jane Velez Mitchell, and you are now re-entering a portal through a transformative way of living.
Hello, we are back. Top of the half hour with Dr. Sailesh Rao, founder of Climate Healers. He is a systems analyst. I personally consider this gentleman a genius. He is a PhD from Stanford. He worked at one of the biggest tech companies for years. He was instrumental in facilitating the acceleration of internet speeds. And he has decided to tackle climate change. And basically, your basic premise, Dr. Rao, is that the big piece of the puzzle, animal agriculture's impact on the climate, is being ignored by those at COP27 in Egypt and all the official environmental groups, essentially. I mean, there are environmental groups that are starting to really incorporate the plant-based message, but a lot of them are not. And we're doing this, we're ignoring this aspect at our own peril. So bring us up to date on what you think the alternative is. What could we do right now to start really tackling the problem?
Yeah, to me, the systems model is telling us that you need to get to a vegan world as quickly as possible. In fact, the sooner the better. If you can do it today, wave a magic wand and everyone goes vegan and starts eating plant-based foods, then you can say, well, how are they going to get the food? Who is going to grow the food? How much money are they making growing the food? I'm saying, no, those are secondary concerns. Money to me is something that we as human beings sort of created among ourselves to do transactions. You can do things without money too, right? So there are lots of things going on that are being done without money as a transaction. So you don't need a market mechanism to actually thrive on this planet. Okay? So you have to create other ways of bringing resources to bear on a problem and solving the problem, whatever the problem is.
I want to go. Sorry to interrupt you, but when we get these callers, we want to take them before they run off and do something else in our ADD culture. We got Michael in Los Angeles. Your question or thought?
Yeah, good morning, Jane. Good morning, Dr. Rao. I wanted to tell you how frustrating this is for me. I received the calendar from my pharmacy the other day, and it's already, for 2023, already coming up. And every page has a recipe for some kind of a meal with, with meat, dairy, or honey or whatever, It's just disgusting. And I just wanted to point out, I don't know if it's been pointed out yet so far, but how Big Pharma is entrenched with animal agriculture.
Right.
And how that's a serious problem. They have so much money. And what can we do,
Thank you, Mike.
Basically, we are focusing on the disease model, and we are saying we are making money off diseases, so let's grow that. So they keep growing the diseases, and and people are getting sicker and sicker, and the planet is getting sicker and sicker. And so we have to now put our foot down and say, we are going to feed ourselves healthy food. We are not going to fall into this sickness model. We're going to heal ourselves, and then we'll heal the planet. Right? So I say, for that, what do you need to do? Well, make sure that healthy food is freely available to every human being on the planet. This is why I see that as one of the biggest parts of the solution, is having healthy food freely available to every human being on the planet. And it should be joyous. It's not a handout. What we are saying is that even rich people are eating unhealthy food. They don't know how to eat healthy food because we have all been miseducated. on
I
what
want
is healthy
to,
food.
and I always hate to interrupt you, Dr. Rao. We got quite a few callers here. We're going to go to Paige Parsons Roach. Your question for Dr. Rao.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciated this weekend's conference that you had, the VCOP. And Gerard Bishop was speaking about regenerative grazing for climate, fact or fake. I hear a lot of, I've seen a lot of the messaging out there that says like regenerative agriculture to reverse global warming. Please, can you help just put an end to this? What is the truth? I feel like we're just constantly being lied to. And now there's this whole conversation about, kiss ground, regenerative. What, can you please make some sense of this for me? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Paige. Yeah, that when anyone comes and says, I have a solution, and this is a solution to climate change, regenerative agriculture is a solution to climate change, regenerative animal agriculture. Okay. I say, okay, then let's put that in the model and see if it's a solution. And when you put that in the model, you see it is not a solution because it's actually going to increase the emissions of methane, and it's going to use more land for the same amount of animal foods that you're growing, and you're not addressing the root causes of the problem at all. And so it's, as soon as you put it to the test, it says it's not a solution. Then I say, why are we even looking at it?
Well, and I'd like to say something else. The gentleman who is the brainchild behind the regenerative agriculture thought it was a good idea to kill tens of thousands of elephants in Africa because that was his last brainstorm. So anybody who does that, and he says it right on his TED Talk, it's the first thing he says. Anybody who's done that, I think, loses the privilege of coming up with other solutions because that's absolutely horrific. We've got Annie in LA. Your question or thought for Dr. Rao.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Two powerhouses of justice warrior heroes. Thank you so much. It's frustrating, Dr. Rao. I know you do so much where you could be retiring and you do this for your beloved granddaughter, and I can't thank you enough. And your granddaughter, we're so blessed to have you both, and Jane. But hello, can you hear me?
What is your question, Annie?
Yes. My question is, how can we reach out to people around the world that are feeling helpless or are confused, to take away that confusion? What can we do to tell them to realize that this is a dire emergency and there is something they could do about it right now, here and now, instead of feeling helpless and surrendering back to the confusion, which the industry does so well? Because I'm choking hearing all the beautiful questions from Tammy to Paige to Rebecca to Michael, everybody that spoke. I've been choking. All of it is true and much more.
Well, let me
so what
say
can
this,
we do
Annie,
to
thank you
empower
for that
people?
Wonderful question. And I have to jump in and say that's why we started Unchained TV, our global vegan streaming network. And this is the first show that is on live, not only on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, but also on our global streaming network, Unchained TV. We have to get out of the vegan echo chamber. How many times have you guys gone to something where you are looking around and it's a film about veganism and everybody there is already vegan? We need to reach other people. And it's not going to happen through mainstream media. Mainstream media, I'll give you one example. We had a reporter at COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland. She videotaped the scene. You saw vegan banners everywhere. She also went in and showed the meat and the high carbon price tag on the meat items that they were selling. If you look at mainstream media coverage, you will not see a vegan sign anywhere. They cut it out. They edit it out. That's why we started Unchained TV. Anybody who really cares, I urge you to download this app. You can download it right on your phone. It takes 30 seconds or less. You can do it right now. Here it is. It's right there. You download it for free, and hundreds of videos come up that you can share with other people. Share a video with your cousin who's not vegan or who is sick because he's eating a fast food diet. Share the videos to educators or people of influence, or email your email blast. We've got to get out of the echo chamber of talking to ourselves all the time. We already agree. We don't want this to be an exclusive club. We need to reach people who don't have this information. And that's why we do Unchained TV. So that's my answer. You can answer, Dr. Rao, as well.
Yeah, no, I see. We are reaching out beyond the echo chamber when we start giving out healthy food for free. So we do that in Santa Monica. We do that, everywhere in the world that people are giving out healthy food for free. It's not just vegans who eat it, right? So, and that is the best way I see for us to reach out with love to our fellow human beings and say, we have to heal ourselves first. And when we heal ourselves, we start healing the planet automatically, because it's pretty much, if we all start eating healthy food, healthy whole food, plant-based meals, then you're minimizing your footprint on the planet, and the planet immediately starts healing herself too. So to me, it's common sense, right? And then our body heals and the planet heals simultaneously. So I see food healers, the initiative of food healers, which is to give out healthy food for free. And now we are enrolling more and more organizations who are throwing open their commercial kitchens and saying, please come and cook. And you can, volunteers come and cook, and we go and give it out for free. So
I want to jump in
that,
and I apologize, Dr. Rao, but we've got another caller. Don't want to lose her. Nilofar in Dallas, Texas. Your question or thought for Dr. Rao?
Hi, Dr. Rao. I'm going to quote the comedy, Don't Look Up. I mean, the sky is literally falling and nobody is looking up. In the last 8 years, the heat has been going up in the world and nobody is still looking up. The pandemic happened and nobody is looking up. We are barreling towards destruction and everybody's got the blinders on. Thanks.
Yeah, Nilofar, but when we focus on those who are not looking up, we tell that story and we tend to amplify that story. When you focus on people who are looking up and who are actually doing something, you tend to amplify that side of the story. And that's the story we need to amplify now, right? So I'm saying, please focus on those who are looking up, who are taking action, like we are doing it, right? We've been doing it now for a few months. And, actually, I've been working on this for 15 years. But this particular Food Healers Initiative, I've been doing it for 2 years now, at least locally in Phoenix, and at least a year in Santa Monica. And now we want to launch it worldwide. And we're doing that on November 19th. And, so that when we focus on that, we amplify that.
I want to say November 19th. Now, if you want to get involved, you can go to climatehealers.org, right? It's that easy. climatehealers.org. And we should put that up there in the comments. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I want to say that when I first heard about it, I was not too excited about it because, believe it or not, my parents experienced the Great Depression and they had told some stories about food lines and how upsetting it was and putting a cup out. And I just, all those images came to mind. And I thought, why would I want to go somewhere and get free food? I can afford to buy my own food. I'm being honest. Okay. Then when I went to the event, it was a huge party. It was fabulous. Everybody was enjoying themselves. There was music. People were dancing. And it was 180 degrees different than what I thought it was going to be. How do we convey to people that it's going to be this joyous celebration, that it's not based on, well, somebody's, people don't like to be victims. People don't want to consider themselves victims. I was watching a political show last night and they were talking about why this group and that group is responding differently than people would expect to current events. And somebody said, people don't want to be called victims. They just want to feel empowered. So How do we show that this food healers movement is a party? It's about empowerment. It's not about somebody's in need, somebody's a victim.
Right. It's an empowerment because we are implementing a solution to climate change. I mean, see, climate change to me is not a problem. It's a signal. It's a signal from nature saying you're done with your old job. The job that we've been doing so far is we have been the climate heating species. of the planet. And we've done a pretty good job of heating the climate. Okay, so we have to congratulate ourselves for heating the climate so that the Earth will never go back another ice age again. And now we have overheated it a bit. And that's the signal from nature saying, now stop being a climate heater, become a climate healer. And that is a transformation. It's a transformation. Transformations are always painful, but they are exciting, they are challenging, and they can be joyful when you get out at the other side. I mean, I transformed myself in the sense that I was doing something and I changed what I'm doing, right? I'm much happier than I used to be. In fact, my granddaughter was one of the major factors in helping me transform.
Well, I want to go to a clip now. You had a 2-day alternative conference to COP26 and VCOP, and it was a virtual summit. I was very honored to be a part of it, and you had incredible speakers. But here was your keynote. We're just going to take a tiny little sliver, and then it's exactly what you were talking about. Discuss.
By 2009, I was one of the most depressed environmentalists on the planet because I thought there was nothing I could do. We're all stuck in this system that's driving us down the chute. But then I went to this sanctuary in the Western Ghats of India, and I was struck by the perfection of nature. So I was in awe of nature as a systems design.
All right. So you were saying that you were very depressed, and then you had this transformative experience. And I know that the birth of your granddaughter, Kamaya, who's so amazing, was part of it. Tell us about that, Dr. Rao.
Yeah, I had this transformative experience in the sanctuary of feeling that nature is absolutely perfect as a system design. I appreciate systems, right? Because I've been trained in systems for throughout my career. And so I saw the perfection of nature, and then I felt like we are the only species that doesn't seem to belong in that story. So why don't we belong? And when my granddaughter was born, she basically convinced me that we belong exactly as we are, and that we are not yet seeing through the what we have been doing so far. Okay, so we have been heating the climate, and that's the story I then synthesized. We have been heating the climate because that's what nature wanted. There is nothing in nature that's a mistake. You're not a mistake. You belong exactly as you are. So I say that we need to acknowledge our role, that we have been playing a role in nature, and that we were heating the climate, and now we can become a climate healing species and maintain the climate, harmonize it, and maintain it on behalf of all animals, all life on Earth, for the rest of creation. So basically, as soon as we admit that we are changing the climate of the planet, we own the climate of the planet. Okay? We have a responsibility to other species to maintain the climate of the planet. So, and that, assuming that responsibility is no longer about rights, it's not my right, your right, we're fighting over rights and so on. No, you have responsibilities. Then you have to figure out how to meet those responsibilities. See, until now, when we were in the climate heating phase, it was all about how much can you grab for yourself. It's all about everyone trying to grab as much as they can for themselves and accumulating it, right? And now you say you have a joint responsibility as a species. Then you have to figure out whatever I've grabbed, how can I use it to fulfill my responsibilities? I say, congratulations, you've grabbed a lot. Now fulfill your responsibilities with that.
Okay,
so
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, because I agree with 99% of what you're saying. However, again, we did a documentary on you that's on Unchained TV called Countdown to Year Zero. And that basically said we have to transition to a plant-based culture by 2026, or we're going to be in the midst of a climate apocalypse. And we see at COP27, the world leaders are serving meat and dairy. They're ignoring the whole animal agriculture aspect of climate change, even though they did a report back in 2006 that said that animal agriculture is responsible for more greenhouse gases than all transportation combined. Okay. Now we have this technology. I use this analogy. You see photos of New York before the electric car came along, and before the electric carriage came along, before the car came along. packed with horses. Horses being abused left, right, and center. Tragically, there are still some horses being abused because carriage horses still exist, but obviously it wasn't the primary. It's no longer the primary mode of transportation. And then the car comes along, and you look a couple of years later, those horses are gone. They're not charging through the streets of New York City. Okay, it's a sea change. What changed? Technology. So when I see these technological advancements in alternative proteins that are bringing in an alternative that can be mass produced in these giant vats, fermented just like they ferment beer or cheese, I personally think that's the solution. Now, are you saying that's not the solution? Because I also know with 8 billion humans, we can't talk to everybody one-on-one. We certainly can't feed 8 billion people this November. So is there a way to incorporate these technological advances into your thesis?
Yeah, basically that's a transition technology, right? What you're doing. As I said, nothing that we're doing is out of place. Nature has been doing things through us. Okay, so continue doing that. I'm not saying don't do that, but also listen. Our leaders are already telling us that we're in an apocalypse. So they're doing the job of raising the alarm, sounding the alarm. And I'm just here, coming up with models and saying, okay, if your solution is just, plant-based meats, and then you're going to we can plug that into the model and say, how is that faring as a solution? Okay, let's say that with plant-based meats, we are able to eliminate animal agriculture, but we are still in the same old model of growth. Well, what will that do to the biodiversity of the planet? What will that do to
Can I respond? And it's not like a debate. I really, have always been very taken when I interview these people, is that the resources that these products use are very minimal. I mean, literally, like, for example, the microalgae, that is something that it exists naturally in nature, and they can just basically harvest it from everything. And so it's really much more like exponentially less resource intensive than meat. So I just think that would fold in. I have a lot of hope for those, just having interviewed these folks who are coming up with this stuff. And also, frankly, having talked to people for decades who are otherwise intelligent and caring people, and who seem, no matter what, to want their pound of flesh. This gives them that simulation, and they could have it.
They could have it, but they'll still get their diabetes, their heart disease, and all these other diseases, right? And I mean, you could say it's their problem. They'll figure it out. They'll go to the hospital, but you're still in the same model. Right? So that's all I'm saying. You're still in the same model of making money of diseases. And as long as we are always making money of diseases, there will be someone who will want to make money of planet's diseases. Anyway.
Well, I love it. I just love to, approach different things, because we all have different views that are marginally different, or they're little pieces of the puzzle. What you're doing, Dr. Rao, is absolutely extraordinary. You are my hero. That's why I did a documentary about you called Countdown to Year Zero. You can watch Countdown to Year Zero for free on Unchained TV. And it really tells the story of Dr. Rao's transformation from a high-tech engineer who was doing cutting-edge work to now doing absolutely cutting-edge work to save the planet. So everybody watch that. Go to climatehealers.org and check that out. We've really, really got to get everybody involved. Dr. Rao, thank you so much for joining us for the hour. See you next time, every Monday here on Voice America Radio.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane.
All right, we're all clear. Great job. And I'll work on getting that banner for next week.
Thank you so much. I appreciate